Hey there, it's Dusty Thunder with another Reddit story for you. This one is a petty revenge. We love petty revenge stories. Title of this story is My High School Librarian Was a Little Tyrant. Two can play that game. This was over 15 years ago, but this experience still makes me smile a little when I'm feeling immature. I went to a high school with about 300 students in a small farming town. Most of the teachers were at least decent, and overall the high school was an okay-ish experience, but the person that irritated me and other students the most was the librarian, Mrs. Schumer. Mrs. Schumer would go out of her way to enforce what felt like arbitrary rules regarding computer use in the library. For example, I'd be using the computer for 15 minutes and she'd sneak up behind me and get really close. Your 15 minutes are up and you need to get off right now. I'd be virtually alone in an area with 20 or so computers. Other students and I felt like she just did this kind of thing to feel powerful and jerk us around, as I was far from the only victim of this type of thing. Mrs. Schumer was annoying and fairly constant. She was also arbitrary on who she did this to. The girl students were almost never bothered at all, it seemed. By my sophomore year, I figured out what mattered to Mrs. Schumer. We had a volleyball-sized decorative wooden duck in the library that had been painted red, white, and blue, American flag style. One day I walked by it and I was looking closely at it. Clearly, the duck was handcrafted by someone. Mrs. Schumer freaked out and flew through the library to get me away from it. This was the most passionate I've seen her, and now I know what mattered to her. Later that week, the duck vanished. I had placed it as a bookend in one of the less visited sections of the library. Early the next week, it reappeared where it belonged. Mrs. Schumer pulled me aside and told me that she didn't know who moved the duck, but she didn't want it to happen again. I feigned innocence, but she kept a close eye on me from then on. I had a new game. Many times when I was in the library and Mrs. Schumer wasn't, the duck would travel somewhere else. At first, I kept it near the library, behind rows of books, behind a computer in the nearby computer lab, that kind of thing. When she got better at finding the duck, I branched out to neglected corners of classrooms. It was in the Spanish class for about 3 weeks before making it back to its place. Mrs. Schumer was getting really paranoid. She would see me in the hallway and quickly bolt to the library when she was in possession of the duck. She never seemed to be at ease. It helped that my friends were in on the joke because she started tracking the disappearances to my library visits. On one memorable occasion, I was talking to Mrs. Schumer while my friend stole the duck. I noted innocently at the end of our conversation, "Looks like someone took the duck again." She seemed genuinely scared. I'm sure that she had checked it right when she saw me come in, so she knew I didn't take it that time. During my junior year, I stole the duck for about 4 months, so my best friend and I took random photos of it all tied up with a blindfold, gag, and chains. We left the pictures in the spot where the duck was supposed to go. Mrs. Schumer still couldn't confirm it was me, but the pictures really got to her because she brought it up with me again. She was nearly in tears with frustration. I actually felt kind of bad for her. A week later, I snuck the duck back into its spot. By senior year, I was done with the duck, but Mrs. Schumer was also done messing with me. She scarcely ever talked to me again. Even when I went over on the computer time, we had a truce. This is fantastic. This is like frat rushing level of mischief, and I am here for it. This is fantastic. This also kind of feels like the kind of thing that we do to my grandma at the White Elephant Christmas parties. Like, you know, we bring gag gifts for that party, and we would always find a way to like leave some of them behind in her house. There was if you guys remember the Wiggles kids show where they had a band, there was a Wiggles dance mat. So when you touched it, it made noise, right? We hid that thing under her mattress, and it took her way too long to figure out what was making noise every time she tried to go to bed. This is that level of mischief, and I'm here for it. This is ornery, innocently ornery, causes no pain, but it's awesome. I'm here for it. There were other things too. Someone might have brought like an assorted, like a festive condom assortment or something, and we might have hid that in her house too.